When I was recommended a show where the entire plot and all the action revolves around food, I was skeptical to say the least. For better or worse, I tend to stick to classic shonen types of shows, and while to be fair this most certainly is a shonen and follows the formula pretty tightly, I definitely go into a show with some expectations of superpowers and massive battles going on at the most exciting of moments. Food Wars offers nothing of the sort, yet its most intense scenes manage to be even more thrilling to me than some of the greatest anime battles I've ever seen. While I definitely do favor the series more than most people do, no one really is too shocked that I consider it my third favorite anime if they have seen the entire series. And with that being said, I want to make a video explaining why I think it's so legendary. For starters, Soma, the main character, is one of the best protagonists I have ever seen, both as to how much I personally like him as well as how I think he fits into the story. For a 15-year-old boy, he has acquired some serious skills when we first see him in the story. By helping his father run their family diner since he was little, he was able to absorb everything that life had to offer to him and made him a near master at diner cooking and serving. This is not something you could do simply by living in that environment. You would have to grow up in that world in order to get the most of it. Soma didn't simply help run the diner because that's what he was told to do. He had a distinct love for everyone involved in the restaurant because it is what he took pride in most. He treated the customers like family and tried to give the smoothest and most enjoyable experience every time they came there, and with how hectic a diner can get, he was forced to face challenges time and time again that forced him to hone his skills. He also has an ultra-competitive personality, as all the best characters in this series do, which is showcased in the first scene of the show when he was in a cooking contest with his father and loses for the near 500th time in a row. Despite this overwhelming amount of losses and the fact that he has never won before, he doesn't become discouraged at all. In fact, the first thing he does is start taking notes on what happened. A wise man once said, "Every failure plants a seed of an equivalent success." Soma takes this quote to heart and basically even spells it out to Arena in the latter half of the first season during the training camp of hell. To him, failure is only a temporary defeat and is both a lesson and opportunity to become an even more powerful individual, which is an incredible mindset for someone of his age. This mindset is exactly what allows him to be extremely arrogant without people being able to justify that he is just an asshole. Unless he is proven in some sort of actual competition, Soma will never believe, and certainly not admit, that someone is superior to him. He always thinks he is the best and is willing to accept or issue a challenge to anyone. This would be problematic to me, but his mindset of continuous growth completely changes the game for me. As soon as he is defeated, he immediately recognizes the difference in skill, usually both mentally and verbally, and then takes that loss and makes himself stronger. Sure, it might be in his best interest to work on his self-awareness a bit, but as soon as he's proven wrong, he doesn't make excuses or even anything close to that. How can you hate a guy like that? All I can do is respect the enormous amount of confidence he brings to the table. He also has an even more impressive card up his sleeve, which is his ability to transfer his own confidence to those around him. In one of the best scenes of the series, where Soma challenges Shinomiya to a Shokugeki, he is forced to act as the support chef to Tadokoro instead of being the lead chef, which is pretty unfortunate since he clearly is superior to her in terms of raw skill, and both of their expulsions are on the line. Admittedly, he at first voices a complaint, but as soon as Dojima explains his logic on the matter, he shuts up and becomes the most effective support he possibly can be, both giving Tadokoro the ability to work without worry and focus on what she needs to do, as well as give her confidence to stand against an overwhelmingly strong opponent. Even in defeat, all he does is apologize despite the fact that there is literally nothing more he could have done since his support was flawless and he wasn't allowed to give any advice. The only problem I can really see anyone having with Soma is that he is overpowered. But A, this is a shonen, what exactly were your expectations? And B, it's not like he was just born a god. He worked his entire life building his cooking skills and never would have become so good without his phenomenal mindset. Besides just my personal taste for this character, as I mentioned earlier, he also fits perfectly into the series. Totsuki is a super elite cooking school where people are expelled for even the slightest screw up or insufficiency. Not just every year, but every week, tons of students are removed from the school, creating an ultra high pressure atmosphere at all times. This isn't a school where you can go and be like, yeah, I want to be a really good cook, I'm gonna go here. No. You need to be determined to dedicate everything to your cooking and intend to be a player at the top of the global stage. I've seen the show multiple times now, and if my math serves me right, on average, when people are about to graduate from that school, more than half of the remaining class are in the Elite 10, which is the school organization filled with the 10 best cooks in the school who showcase ridiculous, superhuman cooking knowledge and abilities. You basically have to intend to be able to compete with people like Shinomiya going into that school, or you don't stand a chance. So Soma's attitude about everything is exactly the perspective we want to have in this story. But that's enough talking about the genius that is the character of Soma. Let's talk about what keeps this show entertaining and allows it to compete with the flashy battles of other shonen. Humans have a wide variety of interests, ranging from hobbies as humble and quiet as fishing to adrenaline junkie shit like skydiving and bungee jumping. Because the range is basically limitless, it's really rare and awesome to find someone with interests similar to your own. There is one interest, however, that everyone has in common, and more often than not, this interest is a pretty strong one. I am, of course, talking about the consumption of food and everything that entails. No matter who you are, you have a favorite dish and would likely be willing to spend a decent amount of resources every now and then to have it. We can all agree that one of life's greatest pleasures is enjoying a delicious meal. When somebody builds up a particular dish they've had to be the greatest thing in the world and you are finally able to try it, the amount of anticipation before the first bite is very powerful and will be proportional to the positive or negative feeling that comes after you do take that bite, depending on if your expectations were fallen short of or exceeded. This moment of anticipation and that which follows is what Food Wars is after and capitalizes on every single episode. For every dish made, we get to see the entire process of how it's made and which ingredients are used, allowing us to try to imagine how each combination would taste as it's cooking. Additionally, we often get the full treatment from the spectators or judges as they smell the aromas each dish gives off as they are being prepared, spelling out the said anticipation since we can't smell it ourselves. When the food is finally served, the most brilliant part of the formula shows itself off, and this is where Food Wars really moves into ranks of the legendary, in my opinion. Whoever is being served tries the food, and depending on the type of dish, they have some kind of psychedelic experience to represent the way the food tastes to them. Typically, the more delicious the food, the less clothes the taster ends up wearing in these hallucinations, and in the case of some nakuris, they physically lose their clothes as well. The show goes so over the top with this part by giving these absurd visuals and voice acting along with the highest animation quality the show gets. It's a clear-cut execution of the climax of the eating experience and does the best possible job of letting the viewer feel almost as if they are there, and certainly they want to be there. This is the way that the excitement levels are able to compete with that of the greatest shonen battles by taking something that every viewer can relate to and dumping an enormous amount of effort into capitalizing on it in the most romantic and hilarious way possible. People think I'm crazy when I tell them my third favorite show is about kids cooking food, but when you actually see it, you realize there is so much more to it and more to cooking as well. Kind of in the same way as you realize the complexity of volleyball once you watch Haikyuu. Maybe I'll make a similar video on why Haikyuu is so legendary.